Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1287B, and today's date is May 23rd, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Push is On, and the Deep State Will Not Hold Back This Summer. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as promised, Kim.com, he delivered his official statement on Seth, and he went on to say that, I know that Seth Rich was involved in the DNC leak. I know this because in late 2014, a person contacted me about helping me to start a branch of the Internet Party in the United States. He called himself Panda. I know that Panda was Seth Rich. Panda advised me that he was working on voter analytic tools and other technologies that the Internet Party may find helpful. I communicated with Panda on a number of topics, including corruption and the influence of corporate money in politics. He wanted to change that from the inside. I was referring to what I knew when I did an interview with Bloomberg in New Zealand in May of 2015. In that interview, I hinted that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks would release information about Hillary Clinton in the upcoming election. The Rich family has reached out to me to ask that I be sensitive to their loss in my public comments. That request is entirely reasonable. I've consulted with my lawyers. I accept that my full statement should be provided to the authorities, and I am prepared to do that so that there can be a full investigation. My lawyers will speak with the authorities regarding the proper process. If my evidence is required to be given in the United States, I would be prepared to do so if appropriate arrangements are made. I would need a guarantee from Special Counsel Mueller on behalf of the United States of safe passage from New Zealand to the United States and back again. And we can see right now that this is really heating up right now. And I'm sure the deep state is sweating at this point because they've been trying to cover this up for a very long time. And remember, he was shot in the back. Nothing was stolen from him. And they were saying it was a botched robbery. I mean, they had time to shoot him in the back. If it was really a robbery, they would have taken something. And basically, the corporate media really didn't report on any of this. They wanted it completely covered up. And former Democratic National Committee chairwoman Donna Brazile, she is the senior DNC figure who called police and hassled the family of Seth Rich, demanding to know why a private investigator was snooping into Rich's murder case. Now, Rod Wheeler, the private detective investigating the Seth Rich case, he said that, yes, she was the one who actually called the police and tried to put a stop to all of this. And we can see right now they don't want any of this information coming out. If you notice, CNN, New York Times, and the rest, they're not really reporting on any of this. Now, we're going to have to see what happens with Kim.com and how this proceeds, but I have a funny feeling that this might be buried. The deep state, again, is involved in all of this. We'll have to see what Mueller actually does, if he even approaches it, and we will know right away. If he approaches this and he picks it up, he looks at the evidence and he says, there's something going on here. We need to investigate this a little bit further. We know that most likely he is not working with the deep state. Now, if he just brushes it off and he does absolutely nothing and said there's nothing here, we have a major problem. Now, the U.S. is doing something very interesting. The U.S. is going to scrap many of its sizable foreign military grants and replace them with loans. Now, this is coming from the White House top finance official. Ukraine, they were a recipient of large shipments of American military equipment and is among the countries affected by the move. Now, we can see they're doing this for certain countries. Not all of them. Israel, no, not yet. Egypt, no, they're still getting the grants. This needs to be changed in time. Remember, everyone who thought that Trump was going to come into office and say, listen, we're not dealing with Israel, we're not dealing with Egypt, the deep state, I'm draining the swamp, you're all gone, you must leave, I'm getting rid of you. Remember what he's doing in this position. He is going up against a foe that is so deep into the system. They have spies everywhere. leakers everywhere, which we have seen. And their main agenda is to get rid of him. There's no way that he was going into office and he was going to be able to get rid of all of them. It's impossible, especially when there's 60% of the staffers, they were put there by Obama. This is a very difficult situation, and he has to take it one step at a time and maneuver in a way where he can't rile everything up, where the deep state says, hey, what are you doing here? So he has to move very cautiously, make it seem like he's with them, he's working with them, and then do something on the side and make sure they don't understand what he's really trying to do. Now, we're trying to put all the pieces together to understand exactly what he's trying to do. Now, we don't have all the information, of course, but we're trying to figure out where he's trying to take this, because there's a lot of people out there saying that he's with the deep state and he's working with the deep state and everything is lost. Well, I see little tidbits here and there that doesn't really jive with what everyone is saying. Now, of course, people are out there saying, well, he would have done this, he would have done that. Well, put yourself in his position. You think the deep state's not threatening him? You think the deep state's not pressuring him? Think about it. They want him impeached. They're going on the approach that he's mentally ill with Alzheimer's. Pence already is preparing a war chest for the next elections already, which I don't think it's for the next elections. I think it's for him to take over. And they're pushing their agenda to get him to resign. They want him out. If all these don't work, what are they going to resort to? Well, they're going to do the same thing they did to JFK. Now, they might use a different tactic where they bring us to war. That's another agenda. They collapse the economy. They keep him so busy that he has nothing else to do but to go along with their plan. So he's trying to do certain things, but if you notice, they're stopping him at every turn. This is a very difficult situation. And this is why we're looking at every single thing that he's trying to do right now. Now, the deep state was trying to make the case that Russia was supplying weapons to the Taliban. This is why the United States needs all these troops to go back into Afghanistan. We don't need 5,000 worth of troops there. We need 50,000 troops in Afghanistan. Well, so far this hasn't happened. This is something that we are watching to see if Trump goes along with these advisors. Now, it looks like a lot of these advisors, they are part of the deep state. They want the wars to continue on. But something very interesting happened where it blew their case out of the water. Director of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart, said in his testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee on Tuesday that there is no evidence Russia has transferred weapons or money to the Taliban in Afghanistan. Now, we knew this wasn't happening. Russia was there, and what they were doing is they were working with the Taliban in order to assist the implementation of a UN Security Council decision requested by the Afghan government that would allow the group to take a role in the political process. But again, the deep state doesn't want this to happen, and this is why they created this. So this puts a hole in their plan. Now, out in the Philippines, we see that the deep state, they don't want Duterte in power there, and they are pushing the Islamic State full force in that country, which really means there's operatives of the CIA and other intelligence agencies that are working inside of the Philippines to put a lot of pressure on Duterte. And we can see right now that he placed the island of Mindanao under martial law because what was happening there was Islamist extremists. They were fighting government troops there, and it looks like he had to just lock the whole thing down. Now, we'll have to see how this plays out and what occurs, and he's trying to stop what is happening right now. And it looks like the deep state, they are putting pressure on many different countries. We know that they want war. This is their main agenda. They want countries to fall back in line, and they use these type of tactics to make them fall back in line. Now, the United Nations, they are saying they're being hit by a cyber attack, and this is the team that is investigating North Korea. And they're saying that, well, this could be an attack by North Korea because they don't want the UN to investigate. Now, North Korea at this point, they don't really care what the UN says. they're doing whatever they want. They're firing their missiles. They are working with nuclear weapons. And right now, the UN, if they had an investigation or they didn't have an investigation, if they place more sanctions on the country, they're still doing what they've done. They haven't stopped. Now, the question is it really North Korea that's doing it? Because North Korea is completely denying and saying, why would we do this? It makes no sense. Or is it the deep state where they don't want the UN to investigate anything in North Korea because maybe they won't find anything? Because remember, they're trying to convince us that North Korea was behind WannaCry, the ransomware, which there's no way that North Korea is behind this whatsoever. Because if we remember back, they told us that North Korea was behind the attack on Sony because they were creating this film about these individuals that went into North Korea and there was regime change. And then we found out that no, that was completely false. It was a disgruntled employee that actually cyber attacked Sony Pictures and took the information. So the deep state, they're going to continue on trying to provoke North Korea. They're not going to stop. And we're getting a report that in the demarcation line, South Korea opened fired because there was an unidentified object flying from the north. Now, where did this really come from? We don't know. What was it? We don't know. They're saying it's a drone. Now, of course, it could have come from anywhere. They're saying it came from the north, but again, this is when they spotted it. They opened fired on it. And this could have been used to get the war started, because if South Korea was firing in this general area, North Korea would have seen the fire and they might have started firing back. But this didn't happen. And we can see right now that the deep state, they're going to continually try to make this happen. Now, we know the USS Ronald Reagan is in the area. This aircraft carrier was helping out with Fukushima, and a lot of people are saying that it is full of radiation. Now, the Navy's saying that no, it's all cleaned up and ready to go, but this is something that we need to worry about, because if it is full of radiation and they realize that, listen, we just can't fix this thing, they might use this as a false flag. And this is something that we're looking at right now. We see that the Iraqi government, they have confirmed that they are working with Syria, Iran, and Russia to secure the Syrian-Iraqi border. And what they're going to do is they're going to be setting up a buffer zone between the two countries. Now, this is going to make it very difficult for the United States, the coalition forces, to move the Islamic State back and forth between these two countries, because Iran, Russia, and Iraq, they're taking control, and Syria, they're taking control of the borders. And this is why the deep state doesn't want them to take control of the border, because if they take control, guess what? They can't move the equipment back and forth for the paid mercenaries. Now, we know that Trump was out visiting the Middle East. He was out in Saudi Arabia. And he said something very interesting, where he's saying that it is necessary to maintain Syria as a whole, and Syria needs to be united. And they're referring back to the Geneva II Communique of 2014 and UNSC Resolution 2254 of 2015, which there was a roadmap for a political solution inside of Syria, urging a ceasefire and elections in the country, because the people will decide who their next leader is going to be. Now, is the deep state going to go along with this? Because Saudi Arabia was agreeing with Trump on this issue. Now remember, he needs to take baby steps here, because these countries, they've been pushing to get rid of Assad for a very long time. Now, I think he's in Saudi Arabia, he's in Israel, he's going to Brussels to let them know that, listen, the system, we're done here. All of this is coming to an end. We need to make deals. The system's coming down. I'm bringing it down. And this whole game is done. Now, of course, he's not saying it in that way, but he's letting them know. He's explaining it to them. And we're starting to see a little bit of a reversal. Now, of course, are they going to just let it go? No. They're going to continually push their agendas. And Trump is going to have to go along with them. He's going to have to say certain things, and you have to listen to the words he actually uses. Like when they were talking about North Korea and Kim Jong-un, he didn't use red line. If he crosses this red line, I mean, Netanyahu, he uses that term. Obama used that term. Nikki Haley used that term. But Trump, he stays away from all these absolutes because he knows that he's going to have a dialogue with all these individuals. And you need to listen to what he says, just like when we had this bombing in the UK where he calls the bomber a loser. He didn't say these terrorists are coming out from the woodwork. He calls them a loser. I think he understands who these individuals are. And the reason why he's saying loser is, think about it. The FBI, the intelligence agencies, who do they normally find to do these type of false flag work? They find individuals that they can manipulate. And when he says loser, in my mind, I think to myself, well, he's thinking of these individuals that just go along with what these people say, and he's calling them a loser. I mean, is it a great thing to say about these people? No. But we have to remember, he's from New York. And when we look at this, and we look at the UK bombing in Manchester at the Ariana Grande concert, the bomb went off as the concert was finished, and we can see that I think it was 22 people that might have lost their lives. Now remember, a false flag doesn't mean it's completely fake. It means it was set up to push a certain agenda. Now we know out in the UK, they have a huge amount of security, and they have very strict gun laws. They have CCTV cameras all over the place. And my question is, where is all the footage from all these cameras? Didn't they spot the individual? Didn't they see him doing something looking suspicious? Because if we go with the official story, they're trying to convince us that by having all these cameras, the government can keep you safe. And from having all these rules and all these laws and taking away your rights, these governments can keep you safe. If you noticed, since we've been giving up our rights, and the government keeps saying that we need to give up more of our rights, we need to be patted down, we need to give up our weapons, we need cameras all over the place. If you notice, has this really helped? Actually, did it save the lives, if we go with the official story, of 22 people? No, it didn't. So, what's the purpose of all these CCTV cameras? Where is the footage? And what about all the individuals that were there? They all had phones, they're all filming, and we should see a lot of this information. Now, some of it's coming out, but again, the government is not going to keep you safe from this. Now, I do believe this is an inside job. We have to remember the Brexit is going on right now. There's Seth Rich investigation. Trump is out touring in the Middle East, out in Brussels, and we can see that the UK, well, they just raised the terror level after the attack. Now, of course, they're going to create more laws, take away more rights, probably put more police on the streets, add more cameras, and again, if it's a false flag, this won't help because the false flag is the intelligence agencies. They know how all of this works. They know how to shut down certain systems to get by all of this to stage their false flag. And we can see right now that the deep state, they're worried about this. And of course, the Islamic State is taking responsibility for this. And of course, as we know, their revenue has been cut off. No one really fears them anymore. But you have to remember, the deep state has no other terrorist group right now, so they have to use them. And we know that all of this is being done right now to basically sidetrack everything. Maybe they're trying to sidetrack the Brexit, because as we can see, they don't want the UK actually to leave. Maybe they're trying to hide the Seth Rich story. There's so many different agendas associated with this. It's not just that someone went in, created terror, because how do they benefit from this? The Islamic State is pretty much beaten. We can see that Iraq, Syria, even in Afghanistan, they're being wiped out. How does this help them? It doesn't. It's almost like the Islamic State telling the United States to come in and bomb us in Syria. Well, that doesn't help them unless, that's right, they're working for the intelligence agency and it allows them to gain more land. So what is the benefit to them? There isn't one. Who does it benefit? The deep state. That's who it benefits. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.